It helps if you unmute yourself. That's right. Um, I wanted to make sure that you weren't listening to me breathe before. Uh, you are here because you want to know what your book's about, and I want to know what your book is about. But if I ask you that and you say it's about the time when I, that's not what your book's about. That's what happens in your book. And so I thought I'd hop on here and talk about how to present what your book is about, or if you're not writing a book but you are writing, what you write about. When someone says, what do you write about? Oh, you're a writer. What do you write about? If you actually go into the weeds of what the topic or the framework or the method, or it people just tune out because they don't want to know about the method. They want to know something that's an invitation to them and something that's broad. So you might write about empowering women, you might write about motherhood, and in a rural setting, rural Kentucky. Um, and you might write about entrepreneurship for artists. But, we've got to think big, because when we don't, what we do is we slam the door shut. When people ask us, oh, what do you write about? What do you do? It's the same thing as when someone asks you, uh, oh, what do you do, for a living? I think they only ask this in the United States. In Europe, they don't ask, they don't care. It's considered rude in some countries. Like, what do you do? They're like, ugh. No. But in the U.S., what do you do? It's like a kind of a innocuous question to get some chat rolling. And sometimes people say, I'm a lawyer. I'm like, that does nothing for me. I don't know what that means. That's your job title. It's not what you do. Do you prosecute uh, embezzlers, or are you a mob lawyer? Do you see the difference? Like, I don't care that you're a lawyer. I want to know like what you do. So before we get into this even further, let me introduce myself and explain to you why you should listen to me. I'm Allison Lane, and I help women over 40 get their books published and promoted. So everything that I'm sharing with you is this is 25 years of leading PR and marketing for some of the globe's most beloved brands that you definitely have in your house. Okay, from Burt's Bees to the Body Shop to everything that Unilever owns, which PS is like everything from Dove to Ben and Jerry's to I can't believe it's not butter. So believe me, you have seen some of my handiwork. And the thing is, when you're marketing anything, when you're marketing yourself, you are inviting someone into to have a discussion with you, to engage. So what your book is about, or what you're writing, certainly does offer you an opportunity to uh, engage someone in a bigger way. And this is such a great opportunity for memoirists as well. So if you're writing memoir, or if you're writing fiction, any kind of fiction, these are big lessons, because when you're trying to pitch your book or pitch an article, or you want to write an essay and get it placed somewhere, or you want to write a column for Psychology Today, they don't want to know what's in your article. They want to know, what do you write about? Do you write about uh, uh, how to live with grief and like live a fulfilling life with while still carrying grief? Or do you write about adventure um, that is accessible to anyone? Um, and if you know how to do this, you get more opportunity to write, to teach, to speak, to um, to be an author, to participate in conversations with your peers, and with your audience, your readers, whomever it is. But you've got to be able to present that. So, hi Mona, I see you. Um, One of the folks joining us is Mona Mijas, who is a moderator in the Publishing Lane, which is a free digital community on Facebook that I facilitate for writers of all sorts, published, on their way to getting published, or just getting started. So if that's you, you should join. It is free, and you can look for it. It is called The Publishing Lane. Mona writes incredible nonfiction poetry, incredible, and went from never publishing anything to getting a steady stream of submit, getting accepted, submit, getting accepted, and she's written 3 sci-fi novels, I think, in the last 3 years. So she is on her way, and she writes about really big themes. But if she were to say, oh, well, what I write about is this character who is going to her native planet, like, no, that's what happens. That's what happens in the book. And it just shuts people off, like, oh, I wasn't interested in the story, or I wasn't interested in your experience being an unwed mother who was sent to a home for unwed mothers in the 50s. I want to know, like, generally what it's about. When you do this, it's such a good opportunity because it broadens your audience, and it also broadens your opportunity for endorsements. So oftentimes, if you see a book description on Amazon, and then you scroll down beneath the book description, there will be editorial reviews. And this is a good step for anyone. Go to any book, you'll see editorial reviews, and it'll be, media like New York Times or Scary Mommy. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about editorial reviews. Other authors or experts or leading voices on a particular topic will chime in to say, this book is so important. What's interesting is that you might be reading the description of a book that is nonfiction, but the editorial review is from a novelist. Aha! You know why? Because they share themes that they write about. So the theme that you write about is what the answer is. When someone says, "What are you writing? What do you write about? What's your book about?" You want to offer them themes, not just one, because that's like being offered like one thing on the menu, and you're like, well, I don't like squid. Like, oh, well, you always want to offer somebody a mashup, right? Like, you can have this or this or this. So always 3, and always a theme rather than the plot, because again, people want a bigger invitation, like you got to meet them more than halfway. And I find that then what happens is all of your marketing opportunities open up. So if I had answered your question of like, oh, what do you do? Well, I'm a book coach and a literary Sherpa. That means nothing to you. I'm a marketer for authors. Means nothing to you. That's my job title, but who cares? That's about me. What I do is I help women over 40 get their books published and promoted, because there are far too few books written by women in the world. And the women over 40 have accrued and assembled and consolidated so much knowledge and wisdom, but they've been busy also doing a shit ton of everyone else's work too, and taking care of everyone, that by the time they realize, like, wow, I'm a really an expert in this, or my experience has been is really unique, and I think that I can help people, or I've always wanted to write this book, and I finally am retiring from this job. I get a lot of that. I'm finally taking a sabbatical, or I'm retiring in May, and I finally want to write my, manifesto on my, career topic on astrophysics. And I did have a client who's a physicist, who's an astrophysicist. And I was like, oh, girl, you should have written this like 15 years ago. I didn't say that to her because it was still genius, but she should have. But you know what? She was busy raising a family and being an astrophysicist and and speaking at conferences. But there's no time like the present to package what you know. And so that's why I am out here saying, if you have worked in your field for more than 10 years, you're an expert. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, and 3 years in, it was like, oh, he's changed the world. Like, how many years do you need to work in something before you're considered an expert? There's no minimum. This is not the union. You do not have to get in line in order to progress, and you don't need anyone else's permission to do so. So this is just me ranting, but I do want to say, if you've been thinking about writing, if you've been thinking about writing an article or a book and you don't know where to start, don't worry, I know. I'll help you. You can DM me, you can respond to this, you can join the publishing lane. I'm on all social platforms, even TikTok, where you can see some of my I share a lot of tips that I record while I'm in the car, in carpool, just sitting there going like, oh, I have to answer this question, because I get a ton of dozens of questions a day. And I just want to, every time someone asks a question, I think, well, you know what the rule is. If someone asks a question, then 100 other people have that same question. That's why I document everything. And that's why I share, because it shouldn't be hard to get these answers. Now, before we move forward, Mona, you learned your book is science fantasy. So it's sci-fi, which is science fiction, but are you saying that now that, well, I definitely knew your book was fantasy, but it could be, there are, young adult fantasy, there's space opera, which is also fantasy. So there are subgenres of fantasy. But it's interesting that there's the merging of science and science fiction and fantasy. I think science fiction is just not specific enough. I mean, there are even sub-genres. Like you might have a portal fantasy, and that's a book where there's some sort of, it really like indicates a plot line of there's a portal that takes people from one place to the next. So that's a portal fantasy. There's time travel. There's time travel fantasy. There's a bunch of others. I work one-on-one with people writing nonfiction because women, again, accrue all this wisdom, and then they get to a point where they're like, I should really package this and give it to someone other than the 3 or 4 or 10 people you work with, and or who you know, whether they're life lessons or insights from your experience navigating the healthcare system. I have many clients who have accrued this knowledge, and also medical practitioners who have really healthy businesses serving people, seeing patients, and they don't have time to have a timeout and go write a book. And so, but their methodology is such that it's, leap years ahead of what else is out there. So if that's you, yes, you should write a book, but please know that you should not write the whole book. You should get in touch, because No one, if you're writing nonfiction, nobody wants you to write that whole book. They want a book proposal. So if you DM me, I'll tell you all about that and what's in a book proposal. And I have a free guide you can download and everything. So I will see you back here tomorrow. I'm going live every day this week and next week. See you tomorrow, same time, same place, 12:30, wherever you are. And if you miss it, there's always a replay. So again, thank you for writing, and I would love it if you let me know, what are you writing about? And if you need help putting that into words, I got you.